We have a release date for the Galaxy S9 and it is February 25th. And just like Samsung always does, they're already starting to leak images of the really? Is that right? Either way, let's talk about the Galaxy S9. So I am an Apple sheep, yes. I do not use Samsung products on a daily basis, but because so many of you out there are so curious about my thoughts on the Galaxy S9, I thought I'd fill you in. I'd like to bring up that I really enjoyed my Galaxy S8 Plus. I thought it took amazing pictures, it was packed full of features, I love the design of it, it got me ready for a lot of the design changes Apple had yet to make at that point, but because of software lag and just lack of optimization with a paralleled ecosystem that the iPhone didn't have, decided not to stick with the Galaxy S8. It just wasn't doing what I needed a smartphone to do. I was running into a few glitches. That why I ditched my S8 video got a lot of hate, but it was the honest to God truth. But anytime someone asks me what phone I would go to if I couldn't choose an iPhone, I always go the Samsung route. I think they are the top of the line innovators when it comes to display technology and new and exciting features to see in smartphones. They were kind of first to the curved edges and they were kind of first to the wireless charging revolution. Not the actual first, I know, but they were kind of the first to modernize it, and they've had it on their lineup for a very long time. So if we look at the history and we see Galaxy S5, we see a very different Samsung with a removable back, removable battery, expandable storage, more durability. You could drop it, it was water resistant. And then Galaxy S6 threw out a bunch of things in favor of having a glass back, a more premium feel, more of an iPhone feel. You lost the water resistance, you lost the durability, you lost the expandable storage. So they compensated with the Galaxy S7, which brought back expandable storage, the water resistance, while retaining that premium look, while also reducing the camera bump. Then we got one of the most substantial, most noticeable Samsung upgrades, the Galaxy S8, where they finally ditched that physical home button, introduced this infinity display that still looks very futuristic even in 2018, with iris scanning technology, while still retaining a fingerprint reader, just moved into an awkward place on the back. So now when we're moving from Galaxy S8 to S9, we're seeing kind of a weird design approach. If these leaks turn out to be true, I really hope they're not. I have massive respect for Samsung. I don't want them to fail. I think they make good stuff, as they do help Apple make a lot of the iPhones they produce. The S9 leaks right now kind of look like the Galaxy S9 Active. For a long time, back the last time I talked about the Galaxy S9, they were talking about reducing the bottom chin because there was nothing there. Kind of makes sense to have a forehead bezel on a phone like that because it is stuffed to the brim full of sensors. Iris scanning, IR sensors, front-facing camera, the earpiece, and it's rumored actually that with the new S9, they might do the same trick iPhones do and have stereo speakers where the earpiece actually just gets really loud and acts as a front-facing speaker, which I think would be a big help towards Samsung's great weakness of having pretty weak speakers on most of their Galaxy phones. But you know, Samsung made fun of Apple for having the notch, so it's obvious Samsung could not embrace a notch if they wanted to. So makes sense that if they were designing a phone, they would have the top forehead bezel be kind of present, stocked to the brim full of sensors, and then have the bottom one not there because it doesn't need to be there. But turns out they weren't really able to figure that out. Then we got some reports saying that the S9 would not look very much different at all from the S8, and now we're getting these leaked images that are not too far away from the actual release, less than a month now, and doesn't look terribly exciting. I mean, it looks fine. It's not a bad design. I would still put the S9 leaked images above a Pixel 2, but at the same time, I just thought they were going in a completely different direction. Now, like I said, Samsung has announced that there is an official release date, and they released this image saying that it's all about this new camera they've designed. And from what we've heard from leaks and rumors, they've designed something really cool, something I'm really impressed by, an actual lens and aperture that can manually physically change inside the smartphone depending on what types of pictures you're taking. So you have a standard aperture lens of around 2.2 or 2.4 within the 2-point era, but then when you want to go to extreme low light mode, or perhaps you just want extremely good bokeh, you can manually switch the lens down to an aperture of 1.5, which would definitely be one of the lowest aperture lens of any smartphone, which would mean that low light photos are going to look great. In my personal theory, one of the reasons photographers or videographers go with that lower aperture is you have a narrower field of focus, meaning that instead of having a computer try to dictate that is background, that is foreground, oh, I blur this, which all companies have different ways of doing. With the iPhone 10, you have 2 cameras working on it. With the Pixel 2, you have AI working on it. It's very possible that with the Galaxy S9, it might just actually do it the way an actual DSLR camera does it, which is just have having a narrow depth of field, which is a result of having a low aperture. If they're able to activate that 1.5 aperture in normal daylight settings, you could get some pretty impressive bokeh shots. I'm very excited to see what kind of camera the S9 is packing and what kind of photos and video it is able to crank out. I'm guessing that it'll support the new H.265 format, just like the iPhone X does, and it'll probably be able to shoot at 4K at 60, maybe even better, or the super slow-mo 1080 at 240. But that camera does sound really exciting, and I'm really pumped to see what they're going to unveil on February 25th. But at the same time, I am not sure what else is changing. Really cool camera upgrade, but other than that, there's not a whole lot of changes coming. It's rumored that they're beefing up the face unlock feature because originally it was literally just using the front-facing camera and just being like, yeah, I guess that looks like him, and then it would unlock. Not super safe, not really any more secure than Facebook detecting, hey, that is you. But they're rumored to be working on a combination of the iris scanning technology and the front-facing camera so that you could have a much more secure face unlock feature, probably a lot more like the OnePlus 5T, because I'm sure Samsung would probably even show the S9 next to an iPhone X and say, look, face unlock on the S9 is way faster. Easily something Samsung would do. I wouldn't be surprised by it. So they'll have a beefed up security system, and it's rumored on the back they're going to rearrange the camera and fingerprint reader so that the Touch ID sensor is where most people actually prefer it, right in the center. One of the most common complaints with the Galaxy S8 was the fingerprint placement being right next to the camera bump and kind of awkward to reach to. Most people like it where the Pixel 2 places it or where the 5T places it, so Samsung is going to follow that trend and put the fingerprint sensor right underneath their camera. And it's also rumored that the S9 Plus, the slightly larger model, will support the same kind of dual camera setup that we saw with the Galaxy Note 8. Of course, hopefully with that beefed up aperture feature and just an overall better camera experience in general. As of right now, it doesn't sound like they're ditching the headphone jack. Samsung's sticking strong on that one, saying, no, we cannot ditch this. But one thing I personally think we might see them start to do is include wireless headphones with the purchase instead of wired, just trying to slowly ease people into the idea, you know, the headphone jack is great and all, and you should have that option, but we're making wireless earbuds now. And by the way, those work really well, and you might prefer those. So other than just a super good camera, maybe stereo speakers, and like I said on the Plus model, getting a dual camera setup like we've already seen on the Note 8, not a whole lot is changing, which is why I think that the S9 sales are probably not going to end up being that good. If anything, what it's going to do is what the iPhone X did to the iPhone 7, which is lower the price of last year's model, and then the customers find out that, hey, last year's model is not that bad a phone, and then have a ton of people actually start investing in the Galaxy S8 and S8 Plus in 2018 because they realize these aren't bad phones. They're waterproof, they got wireless charging, they got Bluetooth 5.0, iris scanning, they got a great camera. They have all this stuff, and now the price has been reduced to $500 or maybe even lower than that, in which case all other Android developers better start running. They're gonna have a huge competitor to work with if there is now a competition like the Galaxy S8 that is now cheaper than a OnePlus 5 phone, or even just as cheap as a OnePlus 5 phone. Of course, there's going to be the Snapdragon 845, how could I forget, introduced in the Galaxy S9 for the first Android phone to sport that this year. But based on the leaks we've seen of the Geekbench scores that the 845 gets, it doesn't outscore an iPhone. Apple still is king of the processor speed market, but of course you Android people don't care about that. However, I do just think that other Android smartphone companies should be really scared that Samsung is about to unveil 2 new phones with record-breaking cameras, the fastest Snapdragon processor you've ever seen, and they're probably not gonna break the bank too hard. They'll probably start at standard price points, in which case buying a Razer phone, buying a OnePlus phone, especially if the Galaxy S8, which will likely get a price reduction to $500 or lower, or the red Hydrogen One phone, all competing with Samsung's lineup. All those other companies are gonna have a very hard time competing with that. I think the people that bought into the iPhone market aren't really interested in switching. Most people who buy into Apple buy into it because of the exclusives. iMessage, iOS 11, the Apple Watch, the AirPods, the seamlessness of all of that, and having a really great camera on a Samsung phone probably isn't going to get them to switch, but as the biggest Apple sheep out there, I still have mad respect for Samsung for creating a phone that premium, and hopefully with a bit longer battery life in terms of longevity, because mine just started running into glitches after a couple months of using it. I'm not really sure if I'll be buying the Galaxy S9 to review, because other than 3 to 4 things, it doesn't seem like that many things are changing. I might just go to a store and try one, or try to find a friend who's buying one, but I'm pretty sure my impressions of it would be not much different than the Galaxy S8. Depending on how well you guys donate on Patreon and Super Chat, it might be possible that I could review it, but either way, I'm very curious to see what Samsung has in store, and more importantly, how Apple will compensate it at the end of the year. So let me know what you think of the Galaxy S9 in the comments below. This is your Apple Sheep here, and I will see you in the next one.